Reagan got belly dancing lessons.
Hello folks, and welcome back to Rundown with Maddie. Yay! So, this week we did Aladdin.
Reagan got belly dancing lessons.
What Reagan got this week was a cold.
Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it.
So, we did keep it low-key this week. But first, Disney history for Aladdin as told by Wikipedia. So if you don't know, Aladdin came out in 1992, and they got a lot of design inspiration from Iran, like pictures of Iran. One of the designers, the layout supervisor, took pictures of his hometown, and then it says that other inspirations for the design were inspired by Disney's animation films from the 1940s and 1950s, including the 1940 film The Thief of Baghdad, which I had never heard of before, but maybe we add it to the list in the future. Now, the people that created Aladdin and were specifically in charge of creating the genie, created the genie with Robin Williams in mind. The director, Katzenberg, suggested like John Candy, Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, but Williams was eventually approached and he accepted the role. And apparently he was also doing two other films, Hook and Toys. Now, I've heard of Hook, I have not heard of Toys. Have you heard of that one?
I don't think so.
Me neither. But what I thought was really cool when I was reading this, much of Williams' dialogue was ad-libbed for scenes. He was given topics and dialogue suggestions, but allowed to improv his lines. The supervising animator for the genie, Eric Goldberg, would then review Williams' recorded dialogue and selected the best lines that his crew would create character animations to match. Apparently, Robin Williams had a lot of conflict with the studios during this role. Basically agreed to do this role in gratitude for Good Morning Vietnam and only asked for $75,000 instead of his asking fee of $8 million, on condition that his name or image not be used for marketing and his supporting character not take more than 25% of the space on advertising artwork, since Williams' film Toys was scheduled to release 1 month after Aladdin's debut. For financial reasons, the studio went back on the deal on both counts, especially in poster art by having the genie in 25% of the image, but also having major and supporting characters portrayed considerably smaller. Basically, long story short, they tried to make amends. They eventually did, but during this conflict was also the time that they were doing Return of Jafar. So instead of Williams, it was I cannot pronounce his name, Castellaneta. But that's why he voiced the genie in Return of Jafar. And then Williams eventually came back and do the role in The King of Thieves, which growing up was one of my favorites. The music won several Oscars, I believe. Most of the praise for Aladdin goes to the genie, while a lot of the criticized parts go to how quote-unquote racist some of the things were. And apparently they actually had to change some lines in some of the songs because they were considered racist. But overall, I mean, it got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think it's pretty much agreed that everybody loves this film. What did you think of this film?
It's good.
Yeah.
I like Aladdin.
Did you watch it a lot when you were growing up, or?
I wouldn't say a lot.
Because we watched it a lot when I grew up.
Yeah, but my show that I watched was Jurassic Park, so.
That's true. And then Before Time.
And Ghost Dad.
I do vividly remember, Aladdin's soundtrack has always been one of my favorites, and when I finally got my own car, the Aladdin soundtrack was the one that I played on the way to school,
Of course it was.
90% of the time. So I was that weird 16-year-old, in my car, singing Prince Ali on the way to school.
You're the weird almost 30-something singing Prince Ali on the way to anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I love Aladdin, and honestly, the genie makes the movie for me. The one part that especially cracks me up is, for obvious reasons, because we're an airline family, when he pretends to be the travel flight attendant on the rug, and he's like, all the exits can be found here, and he's got all the arms, and he goes pretty much anywhere. I do also have footage from when they did the Aladdin parade at Disney's Hollywood Studios back in the day. And then they also had, of course, you know, whenever they did a big release of a movie, they had like special exhibits and things like that. And so I do remember, like, when we went to Hollywood Studios, we went and we visited that exhibit when I was a kid, and I was so excited.
It is. Yeah. Hi, Dad. Robbie. Wave. Where are we going this morning?
I don't know. I'm not hungry.
Hey, Maddie. Madeline. Where are you? Disney World. Disney World. Who is that, Maddie? Okay. Ooh. Hi there, Mickey. Hey. What's wrong, Mitch? I see him.
Bye. Touch the jewels. What happened there? Is that what he'll do?
Hey, Maddie, where are we going? Where are we going next? To the Cave of Wonders? Who's up there?
I don't know.
What? What?
If you love to dance, then let's do it again.
Okay. Real hard. Gotta real hard before he comes back.
Oh,
Gene.
yeah. Yeah. You know what? One time
Maddie, wave. Wave, Maddie. Hi there, everybody. Oh boy. Thank you. Oh yay.
So yeah, it's always had a special place in my heart from growing up, and I was excited to do it this week. Now, what I was not necessarily as excited about was our activity, because it ended up being not my favorite one that we've done. But we wanted to try, like, quote-unquote authentic Middle Eastern food. It was very difficult, and it was a 50-50 on whether or not it turned out. So we tried falafel. I think that turned out pretty well.
I had a cold. I couldn't taste anything.
No, so sad. And then we also tried pita bread. But because I have to eat gluten-free, the pita bread doesn't rise. And so...
Or bake.
Yeah.
Or anything.
It was basically like glorified tortillas.
It looked like thick, crumbly tortillas.
Yeah. And then
Uncooked tortillas.
we tried Turkish Delight, which I've heard really, really good things about. But then it ended up not being my favorite, which I was kind of disappointed on.
Well, also, I think it was a little more gooey and whatnot than it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's like straight sugar, so you have more than one piece and you're like sick.
Yeah.
Big
So if any of y'all want to come over to our house and eat the rest of it, let us know. So I started out with the Turkish Delight because I knew it was going to take the longest to make. I grabbed my sugar, my powdered sugar, cream of tartar, cornstarch, a lemon, and some vegetable oil. You're also going to need a 9-inch square pan and a thermometer. A candy thermometer is preferred, but that's all I had. Then it says to grease the pan, but because I eat gluten-free, I don't really trust a lot of the spray, cooking sprays. So I use butter to butter all of my dishes for baking. And then I know that Turkish Delight is supposed to be really sticky, so I added a piece of parchment paper in there and then buttered the parchment paper. I took my lemon juice, which ended up coming from about half of a lemon, and added my water to it. Then I realized I'm gonna need a bigger pan because this thing takes a ridiculous amount of sugar. Not just one, not just two, but 3 huge cups of sugar. And then you stir, and you stir, and you stir some more. And you wait for basically all of the sugar to dissolve, and then you bring it to a boil. That's where you enter your thermometer. When I put the thermometer in, it was at 211 degrees, and it needs to get to 240. So I decided while I was going to wait, I was going to play with the baby. And it was a lot of fun. Isn't she cute? So yeah, we waited for the heat to get up to 240 degrees, which ended up taking almost an hour and a half, pretty close to 2 hours. So that was agonizingly long. Once that happened, we put the cream of tartar in with the cornstarch and some extra water, and we basically made the glop that I made in science class at one time when I was in 6th grade. And you keep stirring it until it basically turns into glue, and you pour in that lovely sugar mixture that you made earlier. And it all just kind of becomes one big gelatinous mess. But it looked pretty good, it smelled pretty good. And after an hour of cooking on the stove, Jared ever so kindly took it for me and poured it into the prepared dish, and we put it in the fridge. It says that you need to chill it overnight. We made this in the morning and then had it very, very late at night while we were watching our movie. Once it chills, you take it out and you cover it in powdered sugar. And like I said, it tasted okay, but it wasn't necessarily our favorite texture. For actual dinner, I needed to make a tahini sauce, which is basically just sesame seeds. So I toasted those and I put them in the oven to toast. Then I worked on my bread. I rolled them out into smaller pieces and then baked them for about 6 minutes total. In the meantime, I was also getting my garbanzo beans ready. Some people call them chickpeas. And then I put all the ingredients for the falafel together in the food processor. Then I made my tahini sauce, blended that all together, took the tahini sauce and put everything together to make my hummus. Once the hummus is done, it's usually traditional to put some type of olive oil in. We put regular olive oil. Some people put flavored olive oil. And then once we got our falafel together, we fried those little pieces of dough, and they were so delicious. Duchess would like to say that dinner is served. Got Aladdin, ready to go. Anything else you want to add? Reagan has a lot to say. Alright, well, we hope that you guys have a fun time watching Aladdin if you're doing the countdown with us. And I cannot wait for next week because it's one of my favorites. And according to my brother, it is one of the greatest love movies of all time. That is the quote I'm going to leave you for the clue of what movie we're doing next week. You know what we're doing next week. Why do you have a puzzled face on?
I don't remember what we're doing next week. Oh, yeah. Sunday. Right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
So we're doing that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys will join us. All right, say bye.
Bye.